convert fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. The fraction bar represents division. So to convert a fraction to a decimal, we divide. And if the decimal repeats, we will use a bar to show this. And this kind of looks like this when the answer is like continues to be 3.33. So this can just become 3.33 and then just put a fraction bar over to represent that this just repeats. So, example 1. A cylinder has a diameter of 3.5 inches. It is rebored to 0.030 inch oversize. Convert 3.5 to a decimal. So, and then what is the new cylinder size as a decimal? So we need to convert this number. And so we're going to see that we have 3.5, and this fraction bar represents division. So what we're going to do is divide 1 divided by 2. So we're going to leave 3 by itself because we don't need to deal with it. And then we're just going to go 1 divided by 2. So this is how we convert 1/2 to a decimal. So now we look at division. So now 2 can't go into 1, so it's 0 times. So what we need to do is add a decimal and add zeros. So now we look at 2 going into 10. So 2 can go into 10 5 times. So 2 times 5 is 10. And then we subtract and we get 0. So we're actually done after this point because we don't need to add zeros or anything else. So 2 can go into 1.5 times because we're going to bring that decimal straight up. So the new size, so 3.5 then becomes 3.5 inches. And then it's rebored with 0.03. So what we need to do is add. So we have 3.5 plus 0.03, and we add. So let's add a 0 here to keep our decimal place values the same. So 0 plus 3 is 3. 5 plus 0 is 5. Bring down that decimal and we get 3. And so we would say it is 3.53 inches. Let's look at another example. Example 2. Express 1/16 inch to the nearest 0.001 inch. So what we need to do is divide. So what we do is we take 1 and we're going to divide it by 16, as that bar represents division. So now 16 can't go into 1. So we're going to go ahead and put a 0 above it. And then let's add some zeros here. So now 16, let's see if we can go into the first two numbers, which it still can't because 10 is smaller than 16. So we put a 0 here. And then we're going to have to look at the first three numbers. So 16 goes into 100. So let's go over here and let's do a quick division to see where we're at. So let's just multiply by 6. So 6 times 6 is 36. Carry the 3. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 3 is 9. So it's pretty close. So that's perfect. So now we can put a 6 above. So 16 times 6 is 96. We're going to subtract. And we can't do 0 minus 6. So we need to borrow all the way from this 1 to this 0. And this becomes a 10. And then we need to borrow from here. So that becomes a 9. And this becomes a 10. So 10 minus 6 is 4. 9 minus 9 is 0. So now the next thing we do is bring down that next 0. Now 16 can go into 40 2 times because 16 times 2 is 32. So we're going to go ahead and subtract. 40 minus 32 is 8. So let's add another 0. Now 16 can go into 8 how many times? Well, 16 times 6 is 96. So if we did 16 times 5, it should be 80. Let's just double check. 6 times 5 is 30. Carry the 3. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 3 is 80. So now we have 16 times 5, which is 80. We'll subtract and we get 0. So when we go to our nearest 0.001 inch for 1/16, this is what it would be. Inches. 0.0625 inches. So let's go look at another example. Example 3. To the nearest 1/16 inch, what is the fractional size bolt that should be used in a 0.314 inch hole? So for this, we've already done our division here, which is equal to 0.0625. Now we need to know what size bolt we should use for our 0.314 inch hole. So what we're going to need to do is then multiply. So we have 0.0625, and what we're trying to do is seeing what size. So if we keep adding, so 1/16 plus 1/16 plus 1/16, we're trying to get to a decimal of close to 0.314. So what we can do is just, instead of adding every time, we can just go ahead and multiply. So let's go ahead and multiply by 5. So 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12, carry the 1. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 1 is 31, carry 1, and then carry the 3. 5 times 0 is 0, plus 3 though, so we get 3. So we get 0.3125, which is really close to 0.314. So this is it. So we would say what fractional size bolt we would need would be 5/16 of an inch. And this would be our solution, as this would be the closest to get that should be used for a 0.314 inch hole, is to use a bolt that is 5/16 inch.